So when we start looking at the calories in, calories out, specifically for women in today's society, there is a disruption in the way that our hypothalamus is understanding what's happening when we get into a calorie restriction, especially when we're looking at where that calorie restriction falls. So if we see women, and I see it all the time, who are chronically under eating, and they might go, "Oh, I eat 1,800 calories a day." That's a lot, right? And I'd go to one CrossFit class and I make sure that I eat before and after, but I'm still have extra body fat and I still feel really tired and I can't hit those energy metrics. And then I'm like, well, actually, you need about 2,800 calories. And that's a lot for people to grasp when we've come from this calories in, calories out concept. But if we don't have abundance, we can't change body composition. If we don't have enough calories and energy coming in to support our general health, so all of our organs require energy. The basic needs of our cells require energy. If we don't bring in enough fuel for that basic energy, as well as all the other things that happen in a day that require our bodies to have fuel and energy, there's no way we can budge body comp.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jodi Richardson, and this is Well, Hello Anxiety. In a world that often moves too fast, we're here to pause, breathe, and understand anxiety together. Each episode will explore practical strategies, share honest conversations, and uncover the science behind anxiety and well-being, all while creating a space where it's okay to not be okay. Let's continue this journey together. I am not exaggerating when I tell you that if you apply what you learn from this conversation, it will change your life. And I am speaking from experience, and I'm sure I'll get a chance to share a bit more of that with you soon. You'll finally be able to stop worrying about what you eat, get off the diet that you've been on, maybe the diet treadmill that you might have been on calorie counting or whatever it is that you've been doing when it comes to food. I know that takes a lot of mental space, and you'll finally be able to leave that behind. You'll have more body confidence. Unlike anything you have ever experienced, it's certainly been the experience for me. You'll have more energy, clearer thinking, less stress and anxiety, more capacity for coping with life's curveballs, which can come at the most inconvenient times, so we can prepare ourselves to cope better. And also, you'll be able to reduce the likelihood of suffering with dementia, and give yourself the best shot at not just living a longer life, but actually living a longer life with better health and function, still being able to do the things that you want to do. No matter kind of what age you're at, this is an episode that you are going to take a lot from. So it's with pleasure that I welcome to this very special episode of the podcast somebody whose work I admire deeply. Dr. Stacy Sims is joining me. Dr. Sims is internationally acclaimed for transforming the way women fuel, train, recover, and manage stress. And it is all based on science that honours our unique physiology as women. Seeing the shocking lack of research on women in exercise, nutrition and medicine, Dr. Sims set out to change it, and change it she has. She is the author of 2 groundbreaking books, Raw and Next Level. She has created a suite of courses, and she is empowering women all over the world to make significant changes that make a meaningful difference to the quality of our lives day to day and over time. She is a globally recognised expert in women's health, exercise physiology and nutrition science, and has published, and this is rare and exceptional, over 100 peer-reviewed papers. She holds esteemed positions at Stanford University and Auckland University of Technology. She is a busy mum, she is a business owner, she travels the world, and she is kind enough to be sharing some of her time here with us today. So gosh, Stacy, you've done such brilliant work to date, and there's more to come. Welcome to the podcast, and thank you for joining me.
I'm excited to talk.
Oh, thank you. And look, there's so much that we can talk about today that can affect change for the women listening. And fellas, please share this episode with the ladies in your life. But I want to start by talking about making change, because when it comes to the things that we'll talk about when it comes to eating and exercising and recovering and some of the other practices that we can incorporate into our lifestyles that can elevate our mental health, our mood, strengthen our physical resilience to stress. It means doing something different, doesn't it? It means changing what you might have been doing for a very long time. So, I really want to start. My first question to you is for people listening who are going to take so much from this, what do you say to all of us about making change that we'll be so grateful for in the coming weeks, months, and years?
First and foremost, change is hard. We all know that. And we live in a society where it's not conducive to change. Like our bodies are not challenged. Mentally, we might be challenged, but through stress, not eustress. And it just supersedes all of the things when we try to put in a positive change. I don't want people to feel like making change is overwhelming and scary. So I always pull it back and say, you know what? We're just going to look at one habit that we want to change over the next 3 weeks. Maybe we're just going to focus on sleep and sleep habits and dial in things around so we can get some really good sleep. Because if we have good sleep, then we can budge the needle on things like making better food choices and physical activity. And of course, if we have better sleep, we have better mental resilience. So then we're able to connect with people better. We're able to have better community. And as we're looking through, change isn't about what can we do all at once right now, but it's what steps can we take along the way to fulfill us a year from now, 2 years from now, 3 years from now, as a lifestyle choice, not as a part of that diet and fitness culture.
Thank you. I really wanted to start there because the things that we're going to be talking about today are going to change the way people think, women think about what they've been doing for a very long time. And I know we're both Gen Xers, and some people will have been listening to information and taking on board protocols and operating in a way that we're going to flip and share today some of the science around why the strategies, practices, and even eating habits around fueling and recovery and fasting, that the science around what women can do that makes the most difference to their physiology and to their health is going to require doing some things a little bit differently. So I love that you said start small, start somewhere, and just monitor what the effects are over the coming weeks. And once we start to experience the benefits of that, making more changes becomes a lot easier, especially when we're starting to feel so much better. One of the things I want to do is just really congratulate you, because the work that you are doing and then communicating, because it's one thing, isn't it, to undertake the science and the research. It's another thing to bring those findings to the wider community, and you're doing such an incredible job of that. So first of all, congratulations and thank you. It's so important. One of your mantras is that women are not small men, and I'd love for you to share, please, what the historical lack of research into women in the areas of exercise and nutrition, what that's meant for what we've been doing, the way we've been exercising, whose protocols have we been following, and why is it so important that we start to do things differently?
Yeah, I mean, when we look at historically where exercise, and especially sports science and sport physiology it started with who was in the room, which is primarily men. So if we think about scientific design, we think about the questions being asked, we think about the environment that is very masculine. It's not very conducive to having women come in. So when we start looking specifically at the research that's been done in exercise and nutrition, it's been primarily done on college-age men, or maybe we can extend it out to men in their 20s and somewhat in their 30s. And we see that the outcomes have been generalized to women, but there are sex differences from birth, and that can also carry through to when we start getting epigenetic changes around puberty from testosterone in men and estrogen, progesterone in women. And our sex hormones and these sex differences affect every system of our body. So from what we call muscle morphology, women are born with more of our endurant type fibers. So that means that we are less fatigable. So we have a greater capacity for being endurant, where men have more of those fast twitch fibers. So they have a greater capacity for power and lactate production. So when we start looking at exercise and exercise protocols, we have to really understand that women have kind of just been, oh, well, it's great for men and it's good enough for you too. But when we start disseminating it down, if we look at like the 2024 Olympics and we see the conversation of menstrual cycle coming up, and that has been new within the sports science world, and how that directly allows women to say, yeah, I feel great on these days, or I don't feel great on these days, to be able to dial their training in to maximize their performance. So when we start looking at what is out there in the general pop for protocols for things like our spin classes or our boot camp classes or supposed strength classes, it's just been pink and shrinked from the data from men. And it's not really allowing women to reach their potential or maximize their time for the best benefit.
And time is so precious, and it's really frustrating when you are working hard, you're sweating, you're doing what you think is the right type of exercise or the right volume or the right amount, and yet not getting the results. And you've just talked about pink and shrink. Can you please just quickly describe exactly what that means and why we cannot just take a protocol that works for men and change it just a little by reducing it or making it a little bit smaller in some way? And the pink part, I'm interested in you sharing a little bit about as well. What does pink and shrink mean when it comes to creating protocols or even equipment for women in sport?
Known namer in the fitness and nutrition industry where we're just going to make something a little bit smaller, and we're going to change the font to be a little bit more feminine, and we're going to throw some pink on the package or pink on the equipment and call it women's specific, without really digging in and looking at, like from equipment standpoint, the differences in our torso length versus a man of similar height. So we think about our strength training equipment, and it's really designed around the male body. So when we start looking at protocols and we start looking at specific things for nutrition, we have to really realize that it's not optimized for women. It still has that shrink and pink idea, right down to even running bras. Like running bras, they have a whole lab now that's really digging in, understanding the biomechanics around running with different size breasts to create a bra that actually works. Because up to this point, it has been just a shrink and pink. It's like, oh, here's this concept. Let's make it a beautiful color and we'll make it fit across the board for all women. It doesn't matter what size their breasts are, but this is what it's going to be. So, I mean, it's 2025 and we're just now seeing really good data come out to support women's anatomically, differences. And so, yeah, it's a bear, if I must say.
Yes, absolutely. Well, let's get into it because we're here. I really want to be able to take advantage of your incredible experience and knowledge when it comes to what we as women, what we know, what the research says now we can do that will make a difference, that is suited to our physiology, that means that we can feel more confident in our bodies. We are not calorie counting, we are not dieting, we're not just doing running on the treadmill, watching the fellas in one part of the gym, squatting and deadlifting. So I want to start, first of all, with food, because I want to be sort of thinking about women who are late 30s to kind of late 40s or early 50s. So that perimenopausal-ish kind of phase of life. And, I for a long time was doing intermittent fasting. I would be really proud of myself if I could fast, and I would delay breakfast and I would get up and go to CrossFit and not train. I don't do that anymore. I know differently now because of you. Thank you. So when it comes to fueling ourselves first thing, I'd love you to share with us what we need to be doing, not only the impact that it has on how we feel first thing in the morning, but also how does it affect our stress and our cortisol over the whole rest of the day?
Where the tech differences in the research has been kind of muted until I got a hold of it, and some other people were like, look, let's look at the differences between fasting. So fasting got its time in the sun and still has its time in the sun because of the longevity conversation about, okay, if we're fasting, we're creating more autophagy. So it's like cells being used with some other parts. We're reducing cell senescence, which is, the zombie cells, and we are allowing a greater length of our telomere. So those are all the things we want because it's a delay in aging. And we see calorie restriction and fasting to some point does that in mouse models and in men. But when we look in women, when women hold a fast till 11, 12, then we're seeing a real shift in circadian rhythm. But not only that, we're having a disruptance in our hormone pulses, including our luteinizing hormone pulse, which is responsible for appetite hormones. We see at rest, women have more of what we call acylated ghrelin, and ghrelin is our hunger hormone, and acylated is the active form of it. And if we hold a fast, that keeps going up and up and up and up. And then when we finally do eat, it doesn't come back down to a point where we would want it to feel satiated. So we see that women who hold a fast, who might do exercise in a fasted state, they tend to crave more simple carbohydrates. They don't feel satisfied from the food that they eat, and they move less later in the day. We also see that when women don't eat within 30-ish minutes after waking up, and we hold that cortisol peak for a longer period of time, this also perturbs our hypothalamus and our endocrine system and all of the things that are regulated by our circadian rhythm, because we see the two biggest things that shift our circadian rhythm is light and dark, and food and no food intake. So we're waking up and it's light, and our body, for all intents and purposes, from every cell having their own circadian rhythm, is like, okay, it's time to eat now. And if we're holding that fast, then we're shifting all of those metabolic processes, which then, like I said, further creates disruption. And if we're looking at sleep and sleep issues that really do affect perimenopausal women, with a circadian shift, then our melatonin peak at night, which should be around 9 o'clock, gets phase shifted later, so we don't feel as tired and we don't get into a deep sleep. So although we see, the research in mouse models and in men about fasting creating this great cascade events of longevity outcomes, for women it doesn't. We see that if you want to garner some of that autophagy, and maybe we're going to get some of the clearing out of our zombie cells, it's just really time restricted eating, where we eat within a half an hour of waking up. We fuel throughout the day for what we are doing, and then we have dinner. We don't have anything 2 to 3 hours before we go to sleep. That way, we're keeping our circadian rhythm in check. We're allowing our hormone pulses to work appropriately. Our appetite hormones are working appropriately, and we're able to get into a deep, good, reparative sleep. It seems very simple, but people really fight me on this. I'm like, this is chronobiology, this is endocrine research, and we also see it when we're looking at things like low energy availability and outcomes in sport and performance.
Mm. And the low energy availability and the outcomes, like, I mean, we all know if we need to fuel ourselves when we are exercising. We know that men can train fasted. Women, we should not be. We need to have some food on board. And you say that people fight you on it, and it's no doubt because for a lifetime we've been fed information that says restrict your calories, eat as little as possible, move as much as possible, because the diet culture has us all looking at, we all have a vanity metric about ourselves. We all want to look good and feel good. It's the complete opposite that we need to do to be able to look good and feel good and function well, and that's eat more. And so we're starting with absolutely having to have something within 30 minutes. And not everybody does feel hungry in the morning, and I didn't used to, but since I've started having something sort of first thing in the morning, I actually now wake up and my tummy starts rumbling. And so, yes, it's good. It's like my body's learning. And can I just tell you, Dr. Sims, the freedom that I have at 51, that sometimes I don't feel like I've eaten enough in the day, like just completely flipping on its head this idea that I need fuel. The protein that I'm eating, I wasn't eating nearly enough, which is probably the case for most women. I eat at least 100 grams of protein a day now. And I don't have to, no longer, gosh, it's so liberating, no longer sort of looking at the energy content of food and making decisions based on completely, not even outdated information, just information that was just never substantiated. And so I want to next ask you to please talk to us about why the calorie restriction drives weight gain, and on the flip side, how we can fuel ourselves to improve our body composition and to have that body confidence that we all are searching for.
The diet culture is something that, I mean, we've been immersed in it. And growing up, in the 80s and 90s and all the stuff we had, and we're always constantly bombarded by the really super skinny supermodel look and calories in, calories out. And unfortunately, that's still very pervasive. And we're seeing now with Ozempic and other GPL-1 agonists, right? It's coming back into vogue. So we have this misunderstanding that everybody has to look the same. So when we see the ideal and we get this messaging of calories in, calories out, we think, oh, well, if we do that, then we'll look like that. But that's not the case. Also, when we start looking at calories in, calories out, it is an energy thing, but it's a very rough guide of calories. And the other thing is we haven't talked about the quality of the calories. So if I were to take a 250 calorie protein bar versus 250 calories of Greek yogurt, they will act differently in the body. And we have to really understand that. So the whole idea about calories came as a measurement of food density when food was scarce. And now people are pushing it as calories is a measure of energy because we have too much, but it's a misnomer. So when we start looking at the calories in, calories out, specifically for women in today's society, there is a disruption in the way that our hypothalamus is understanding what's happening when we get into a calorie restriction, especially when we're looking at where that calorie restriction falls. So if we see women, and I see it all the time, who are chronically under eating, and they might go, oh, I eat 1,800 calories a day. That's a lot, right? And I'd go to one CrossFit class and I make sure that I eat before and after, but I'm still have extra body fat and I still feel really tired and I can't hit those energy metrics. And then I'm like, well, actually, you need about 2,800 calories. And that's a lot for people to grasp when we've come from this calories in, calories out concept. But if we don't have abundance, we can't change body composition. If we don't have enough calories and energy coming in to support our general health, so all of our organs require energy. The basic needs of our cells require energy. If we don't bring in enough fuel for that basic energy, as well as all the other things that happen in a day that require our bodies to have fuel and energy, there's no way we can budge body comp because our hypothalamus and our brain is perceiving us to be under a very severe stress and threat of not enough food available, starts down regulating and holding on to extra body fat. So when I'm working with people and encourage them over the course of 3 weeks, we want to increase your calorie content by 800 calories a day. And we slowly start implementing more in. At first, they are like, wait, my weight's going up. Well, yes, because now you're storing more water and glycogen, but it settles. 3 weeks, 4 weeks down the track, they're like, oh my gosh, I've lost weight and I've leaned up. It's like, yes, because your body understands. Now I have abundance. I can let go of the extra fat. I don't need to hold on to it. And I can use this food that's coming in and amino acids to build muscle. And that's what we want.
It is a hard thing for women to get their head around, that I'm going to fuel myself, I'm going to eat more, but I'm actually going to see positive changes in my body composition, meaning more muscle, less fat. We're not eating up the muscle that we're building. And I feel that I've done CrossFit for 5 years, and it is only in the last 6 months when I've completely changed the way I eat, let go of the 2-day intermittent fasting where I was only eating 500 calories 2 days a week. Oh my gosh. And it did help keep my body fat down, but I was exhausted. I couldn't think properly. I didn't have the energy I needed. I wasn't sleeping well. I was working so hard at the gym but not putting on muscle, and I was not improving in my my strength and what I was capable of. And my nutritionist, Ali Tian, I saw her, and she a big fan of yours as well, and has read a lot of the research that you've been publishing, and is up to date with what actually works for women. And she said, over the next 4 weeks, just watch what happens. And I thought, this is a big experiment I'm going to undertake. And honestly, I just cannot emphasize enough to you listening that it is really important, because it's not just how we look, which is important to us, but what about our bone density, Dr. Sims? What about our muscle mass? Because we lose muscle over the course, every 3 to 8% per decade over the course of our lives, plus osteoporosis. We're living longer lives. And so, we want to have the health and the strength and the function to be able to live a really rich life and do the things we want to do, not just live longer and be sick and stuck in a chair where we can't move. So, eating more is not only about how we look. Tell us the impact on our muscle bulk, which I should say bulk in air quotes because it's very hard to bulk up as a woman. But just in case anyone listening is thinking, I need a little bit more convincing.
Yeah. So I'm going to borrow one of my colleagues and friends' phrases, Dr. Gabrielle Lyon. And she's like, I want people to think about what they gain, not what they're trying to lose.
Yeah.
So if we reframe it that way, what she is trying to explain and what we're all trying to get concept around is if we're gaining muscle, then we're also gaining our bone density and our bone strength. We're gaining improvement in our neuroplasticity. So that means that we are reducing our dementia and Alzheimer's risk. And we are gaining better blood glucose control and as well as stress resilience. So when we're looking at muscle and putting muscle on, and yes, women can't get bulky unless they work really, really, really hard at it. Otherwise, we'd all be walking around like the Hulk, and I don't think people want that. But when we're looking at putting muscle on, it becomes a glucose sink. So one of the big issues that happens in our 30s, 40s, and when we're in perimenopause is we become a little bit more insulin resistant. But if we have more muscle, then that dissipates. We maintain our insulin sensitivity, we maintain better glucose control, and that feeds forward into reduced risk for developing visceral fat, so less abdominal adiposity, less of a signal for putting on normal body fat that's under the skin. So when we talk about gaining muscle, and again, I'm going to keep using the word gain. What are we gaining? When we're eating more, we are gaining, but we're not gaining weight on the scale that's not functional. We are gaining an oversight of improvement in our health span. We are improving our muscle and muscle composition. So we have better muscle quality. We have not the risk of sarcopenia, which is poor muscle quality. We're reducing visceral fat. We are improving our bone density so that we can have very strong bones to be independently living when we are 80, 90, 100 years old. So it's really important to understand that if you're in a calorie deficit, one of the very first things that go is our lean mass. And it's not just skeletal muscle, it's also our bone. So if we're looking to live independently, then we need to see how are we going to, one, step up to conserve it, but also maintain and build it. Because as we get older, it's really hard to build both of those types of tissues. So we need to keep what we have and keep on trying to build it as we go.
Mm. Strength training is something that I know that you have engaged in since you were a teen, and I'm very thankful that it's been something I've loved since I was a teen as well. Although for many of those years I didn't get the benefits that I perhaps could have for reasons we've just discussed. But it is something that can put women off for a variety of reasons. And one of the things is feeling really intimidated in a gym setting. And I literally had a conversation 2 days ago with a woman who said exactly that. I'd done a presentation, I'd mentioned about strength training, and she came up to me later and she said, I just feel so intimidated. And so I'd really like for you to speak to, first of all, the importance of strength training for women and how women can begin to learn how to do it well, because technique's important, but also find ways to incorporate it into their life where they feel that they have the enjoyment and the joy of strength training. So it's something that I would love for more women to be including in their lifestyle. It's common for a lot of women, especially our generation, just to do a lot of cardio. And so, what would you say in terms of, first and foremost, getting started if you haven't done strength training before and overcoming this idea that, oh gosh, the gym is for men?
Yeah, I have been recently encountering a lot of women who are like, no, I need cardio. And if I do strength training, then it's like the Peloton dumbbells, or I go to Pilates. And Pilates, yoga, there's a time and a place for it, but that's not what we're talking about. And I know that the gyms are very gendered, where you walk in, it feels very bro and masculine, and the lifting platforms are all the way at the back, and you have to walk through the machines, and it's kind of feels safer just to gravitate over to the cardio. But if we're just starting our journey into strength training, it doesn't have to be so intimidating. We can start in our house. We can start with resistance bands that are, tied on a doorknob, or, we can tie it on a chair, and we're just putting a little bit of load against us as we're doing lunges or air squats. We can look online and find really good apps that have videos of what to do in the gym or at home to guide you through a progressive overload of up to 12 weeks. And if you want to go to a gym, get a buddy, get a friend to go with you. You can work together. You can hire a personal trainer. More and more of the gyms are understanding that there are so many women coming into strength training now that they're getting rid of the cardio machines and trying to make it very appealing to women to come into a gym. So it's if you are very intimidated, part of it is how we grew up, of
Mm.
thinking about like Miss Olympia and Arnold Schwarzenegger and going in with all the big steroid induced big weights, and it's pretty intimidating. And yeah, I mean, I had someone come into our box, and it's like it's very bro, and CrossFit boxes are a bit intimidating until you meet someone who's from there, and then you're like, oh, it opens it up. So that's where the community part comes in. Really, really important to find someone to go on this journey with you. And it really depends on personality too. If you're someone who likes to work out at home, well, let's do that. Let's find some resistance band. Let's find a really good online app that you can follow for 12 weeks. It's going to guide you through without getting you injured. Or if you're someone who needs the ownership of showing up with someone or going somewhere to say, yep, I'm here, then maybe we're looking at a community class, or maybe we're meeting a friend at the playground to start doing some pull-ups and things that are around. Like we did a session at Bondi Beach on the Venice Beach Bondi kind of setup, right? With resistance bands in amongst all the bros. So yeah, it's a little intimidating. We're not used to it, but you can go and you can own it. And it's just taking that one step. And more you take that one step and build the strength and the confidence that comes with it, the more you take up space. And we need to teach women to take up space and not be small and demure and step aside on the footpath when someone else comes, because we need to own our space. And when we reframe it and go, I'm here for my health and my health span, and by the way, it's going to make me look good in a bikini too, then yeah, that's great. But the cardio isn't going to get you there. The cardio is going to keep perpetuating the same body composition that you have. And it will most likely, if you're not doing strength training, contribute to a lower bone density and sarcopenia. There's so many DEXAs I've seen recently of women who come from the endurance background. And on the outside, they look pretty lean and fit. But on the inside, comparing their DEXA to a sedentary, skinny, what we call skinny fat, so it's normal weight with a lot of fat, they're the same. They have the same visceral fat, they have the same reduced bone density, they have the same poor muscle quality. So it's really, really important that women bring in that strength training.
A DEXA scan being a scan that can look at your bone density, and it can look at the proportion of muscle to body fat. And so it's actually something I haven't had, interestingly. It's something I really want to. I know, right? I've never had a DEXA. When I was at university,
Gosh.
there were so many DEXAs on offer because of the research that everyone was doing, exercise science research. But that's actually something I want to. I'm really interested to have. And so I'll share with my listeners on the podcast on another episode how that goes, and how I manage to access that and so on. But skinny fat is something that I want to come back to, because so much of the exercise, the motivation is about how we look. And so many women, it's like, I want to, we're very self-critical. We've grown up comparing us. It's natural to compare, but the idea that you can be slim and, be a smallish size in clothes, and it really does not matter at all what size you are. And we know that absolutely. But the idea that you might keep your overall weight down if you do own a set of scales, and you might fit into the size clothing that you feel confident in, but it's coming back to those health gains if the bones are chalky, if the muscle quality isn't there and the quantity is deteriorating over time. At our age, Dr. Sims, I'm sure it's the same for you. You see your parents perhaps, or your friends' parents, they're aging, and we can see the difference in those that have spent a lot of time looking after themselves and maintaining muscle mass and strength and function compared to those that haven't. And my parents are polar opposite. My dad is just about chair-bound. My mum just walked the Camino for the second time. And we want to be like the woman that's walking the Camino in her late 70s.
Right.
Dr. Stacy has already shared so much with us and given us information and understanding as to why these changes are going to be effective. And I really invite you to do as was suggested at the beginning of the episode. Start somewhere, start small, and notice the effects, notice the difference that it makes, because change is hard, but these kinds of changes, and we've got more to talk about in part 2, are going to make a difference in your life, not only day to day in the coming weeks and months, but truly when we're much, much, much older, we'll be so glad for the changes we made now. And as the saying often goes, starting something 20 years ago was often the best time. The second best time to start is now. So please, and write to me and let me know, and let Dr. Stacy know what change you are making and how you are feeling. I'm going to be back with another episode with Dr. Sims next week, so stay tuned for part 2. I cannot wait to welcome you back. In our next episode, we are going to drill down into how much protein we should be eating and where to get that protein across the day. We're going to talk about creatine and why that's so important and how much we all should be taking, and the benefits for us in terms of our thinking, in terms of our muscles, just in terms of our health and our longevity. We're going to be talking about thermoregulation, and I'm also going to be asking some questions about time spent in a sauna, time spent in an ice bath temperatures. A little hint, it's different for women than men in the best way you can imagine. And also some of the protocols around how we can use these different levers in our lives, these opportunities to expose ourselves to other stresses like heat and cold. Exercise is another, to really make a difference to the quality of our life now and over the coming decades. So don't miss it. We'll be back again next week. I'll see you then. Thank you for sharing this time with me on Well, Hello Anxiety. Remember, understanding anxiety is the first step to managing it. Until next time, be gentle with yourself. Take things one moment at a time. Focus on what you can control and know that you are not alone on this journey. If you found value in today's episode, please share it with someone who might need to hear it too. I'm Dr. Jodi Richardson, and I'll meet you right back here next week.